Radio Free Asia has shuttered amid the U.S. government shutdown on March 15. The Trump administration terminated funding for RFA, which led to staff being laid off and its service being limited. It will be the first time the international broadcaster has completely gone off air since it was founded nearly 30 years ago. Created through legislation to combat human rights abuses in Asia, RFA began operating in 1996 with the mission to deliver uncensored domestic independent news and information to Asian nations with poor media environments and few, if any, free speech protections, including China, North Korea, Myanmar, and others. Prominent human rights activist Yakui Wang, currently a senior China researcher at Human Rights Watch, has called for alternative funding for RFA. Now we move on to our next news. The United Nations Security Council is holding an emergency briefing on Sudan as the humanitarian and security situation deteriorates, particularly in Fasher, Darfur. Millions are facing starvation and displacement, with hospitals, schools, and IDP camps under attack, and entire neighborhoods emptied as families flee the RSF militia. UN officials, including Martha Ama Akia Pobe and Tom Fletcher, will brief the 15-member council, while Sudan and the UAE participate under Rule 37. The meeting follows sanctions renewals in September 2025 and addresses concerns over civilian protection, foreign interference, and the RSF's rejected declaration of a rival administration. The Council aims to discuss humanitarian pauses, security concerns, and the expanding conflict to facilitate aid and protect civilians. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ayunuga Olugbenga Paul. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, looking at this, what more can you tell us about the dire situation there, and how effective could you and also African Union be in addressing the escalating crisis in Sudan?
I think with this crisis in Sudan, both the UN Security Council and the African Union are acting like toothless bulldogs. And this is not the first time they are acting like that. Remember during the genocide in Rwanda back in 1993, 1994, it took them 100 days after a massacre of over 800,000 people before UN could say they get their acts right and intervene appropriately. And this reason why the UN Security Council seems like a toothless bulldog in this case is that majority of those who holds the UN by the jugular, namely the United States of America and China and Russia, are all interested third parties in the conflict. We can hide behind the finger and try to be politically correct and not call names, but I believe that these are the people, if you remove the external influence and interest of countries like France, countries like US, China, Russia, that is fueling this conflict, and Britain that is fueling this conflict from the outside, that is making it impossible for there to be resolution, I think we would have gotten solution faster. So they, on one hand, pretend like they are helping to find solution and resolve the crisis, and on another hand, behind the scene, supplying different militia and armed rebels with weapons, and thereby escalating the crisis. And the fact that this war is tending towards tribal war makes it also harder for the solution that we will hope or to see to come faster. Don't forget that 15 years after South Sudan got their independence, it was like the northern Sudan were ganging up to, suppress the South Sudan. Now that South Sudan is off the hook. The North Sudan are facing off each other with the Arab tribes and the non-Arab tribes, trying to gain control. And this brings a dimension that is not so easily to resolve. If you add to that the external influences, because with this war and instability, it is easier for all these external influences to buy their oils at dirt cheap prices, to mine their mineral resources at dirt cheap prices, and even illegally, hiding under the cover of the ongoing war. And this plays into the hand of all these international enterprises from countries who are sitting at the UN Security Council. And so, because of that, it is really hard to get the peace accord. But as it seems now, if both parties do not find a middle ground, there will be no one left. The massive carnage that is taking place will continue to get bigger till it engulfs the whole nation, because the state is teetering towards a failed state as it seems now. And one of the solutions that could easily be on the table is maybe to balkanize Sudan again, to form two different countries, so that the Arabic um, indigens or people of Sudan can have their own country. The non-Arabic, can also have their own country. Whilst if this would only even result, because even among the Arabic, there is the superior and the not so superior Arabic tribe that would also lead to another set of conflict entirely. But I hope that this Security Council will get its act together, and the African Union too will stop playing the ostrich and look at this uh, matters very with all
Yes.
seriousness, and find a
Yes.
lasting solution if it requires developing boots on the ground to help calm the tense situation. Because you see that in the last few days now, the attacks on IDP camp, on hospitals, there is hardly anywhere for anyone to go. Before now, they've been battling the food shortage, the non-access to humanitarian aid, and then the massive death tolls
And
is leading to also health crisis, because many of people are dying faster than they can get buried.
yes, and Ayanika, as you mentioned in your answer, that this is partly because of the division in non-Arab Sudanese and Arab Sudanese. And if I recall, years ago when South Sudan got independence, it was due to the religion background in the reason. Do you think this could lead to another country as well?
I, I believe that one of the fastest solutions that is low hanging fruit is to start discussion about having another country, so that let only people who want to stay together. Those who don't want to stay together, because you see, when tribes and religion come into conflict, it is really very hard to solve. And if Europe is having very tiny countries like Monaco with 34,000 people refusing to be part of France but an independent nation, country like Liechtenstein, country like so many countries in Europe, you have countries that are just 300,000 people in Europe, 500,000 in Europe, and they are independent country on their own. Even some of those countries do not have their own police. Like Monaco now uses the French police. They don't have their own ball tournament like the Ligue 1. The Monaco team plays in the Ligue 1, but Monaco is an independent country, for example. So why can't Sudan, if that will bring solution, have, let it not even be two countries. Let it be that as many parts that want to stay together will stay together. Those who don't want to stay together, let them form a country, form a government, and try to solve their issues independently. And let the borders be created to that effect.
Yes, indeed. Great learning from you. Thank you very much, Ayanuga Olukbenga-Paul, for joining us as a public affairs analyst from Lagos. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. 3 men with dual German and Russian citizenship have been found guilty of espionage by a court in Munich, Germany. The men were convicted of spying for Russia, with the main defendant, Dieter S., also found guilty of membership in a terrorist organization, the People's Republic of Donetsk, which Germany officially classifies as a terrorist group. Dieter S. has been sentenced to 6 years in prison, while his 2 co-defendants received suspended sentences of 1 year and 6 months. Prosecutors said the men gathered information on railway lines and military transports connected to Germany's support for Ukraine. The court has found their aim was to spread fear and pressure the government to stop aiding Kyiv. All 3 men denied the charges, with Dieter S. calling his actions a charade. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.